So when I was planning my projects for the May-June trip to my property in the Adirondacks, one of the projects that I wanted to accomplish but wasn't sure I would be able to get to was an outdoor hot shower. I spent a few weeks in the Adirondacks in September, and I had a portable shower that I'd ordered on Amazon, just a little portable pump thing that was powered by a rechargeable battery that you dropped into a bucket, and it pumped water out of the bucket through a little handheld wand that you could then use to get yourself clean. But as you can imagine, sitting naked on a plastic chair with some lukewarm water showering over you in the middle of your property is not the best way to get yourself clean. So I wanted to be a little bit more fancy and build myself a little enclosure where I can actually have a comfortable shower while I still have the view of the wilderness around me and the wonderful mountain views from my property. As with most of my projects, this started with a few hand drawings on a piece of lined paper, just to get a rough idea of the size of the building that I needed to make, as well as the construction techniques and the layout for where I wanted things to be. Drawing the project out like this also helps to crystallize it in my mind. It gives me an idea of the type of materials and how much I'll need, including things like where am I going to store the water, how am I going to get the water to the shower, and how am I going to make it hot. So these are all design decisions that I had to make during this part of the process, and I think you'll see at the end that even though it didn't work out exactly the way I thought it was going to, it still worked out and looked pretty great. As a bonus project, the shower was the last thing that I actually built on the property before I left. But we had the equipment. I had the hot water tank, the battery, the barrel to hold the cold water, an extra propane tank, and all the accoutrements to actually make it work. So rather than go without showers or continue to use that bucket shower, I rigged up something temporarily. And as janky as this looks, it is amazing to be able to step into a kiddie pool and have 115 or 120 degree water rain down on you when you're sticky and hot and have been working on projects all day long. This also acted as a proof of concept to make sure that all the parts that I had purchased separately would work together once I got the shower stall built. And it worked great. My brother Matt, who had helped me for the first 2 weeks building the deck addition, fixing up the bathroom, and working on the kitchen, was unable to stay for the entire shower project, but he did help me get this framework set up. This was one of the hardest parts of this build, getting the posts in, getting them square, getting everything level, and making sure that it was ready and placed properly. So I appreciated all the help he gave me before he was required to go back to work. And without him, I wouldn't have been able to accomplish this project before I had to leave. So thanks again, Matt, for all the help. From this point on, I was on my own, and I tried to record every step of the process. I think you'll see that building an outdoor shower with a gray water pit that filters the water before it goes back into the ground is not an impossible task. You just have to have careful planning and figure it out beforehand, then make sure that you have everything you need to accomplish it. Okay guys, I didn't want to talk too much about this project because I didn't know if it was going to happen this trip, but this is the final project. I got really tired of showering out of a bucket with a cheap little pump and sitting in my own lukewarm mess water. So this trip we're building, excuse me, this trip we're building a shower house. So there'll be a little shower stall here. I need to get a smaller, but I have a kiddie pool purchased from Family Dollar. I'm going to get a smaller version of that. And that is going to go in between the structure here into the ground. This ground is mostly loamy, sandy soil, so it drains really, really fast. But that will go down into the ground. It'll get bedded in a layer of sand with holes drilled all through the bottom. And then there will be a layer of charcoal, a layer of small rock, a layer of large rock, then some landscape fabric, then another layer of sand. And that will fill up to the top of the kiddie pool. And then over the top of that will be more landscape fabric, this excavated earth that's going to come out of the hole where I'm going to sink that into the ground will come down to fill this up down here. So this is a little more even because this is a giant downhill slope, and I'm going to leave a little bit of a downhill slope just in case we do get any overrun. But let's walk through the design here. I've got a towel hanging over. We're doing a test to see if this works as a good towel bar, and it does. There'll be a step up into it, and then in this area there will be a 22-inch bench with a half wall. And what I mean by half wall is it will come halfway into the structure and go up to the top bar here. And then there'll be a comfortable sitting bench where you can sit down, take off your shoes, pegs for your clothes or towels or whatever. From the walls will be enclosed from about knee height to about chest height. So just about a 3 or 3.5 inch span of this wall will be covered up with pressure treated 5/4 decking boards all the way around. There'll be another post here to here to delineate the door. And then once that post is in, this header piece will get cut back to here. This header piece here will get cut back to the post hopper, and it'll stop over here so that taller people can get through without banging their heads. So we'll have a small dry area to get disrobed and enrobed. And then from there on is the wet area of the shower, which is going to be about 4 feet by 5, 4 by 4.5, something like that. So it's a good sized shower booth. The platform back here is to hold the shower equipment. And so you see one post is long and one post is flat. And that's because the shower equipment consists of propane tank, 30-gallon water barrel that will go on the flat side to make it easy to roll in and out if we need to drain the system. And then the propane tank will sit over here on this side. The battery arrangement, this is a like a marine battery that I got. Let me just flip it around. I got a waterproof case at Harbor Freight just to keep the water off the battery. And then the battery setup is in here. And then we've got some extra D-size batteries for the igniter. And the igniter is for this Camp Lux outdoor hot water heater system. So it is an on-demand hot water heater system. It came with the pump. This is a 12-volt pump run by the battery. And so the line comes from the 30-gallon tank into the pump, which has a pressure switch on it, out from the pump into the cold water in on the Camp Lux. And then you set your water flow and your temperature. If I recommend in northern climes setting the water flow to almost minimum, because that gives the water more time in the burner, and then setting the heat to almost maximum. If I do that, I get a good 110, 115 degree water, perfect shower temperature water, nice and hot. But you can adjust that just by adjusting either the flow of the water or the flow of the gas or both. And then this is also a pressure switch situation. So all you need to do is the red line here comes out from the hot side and goes to our makeshift temporary pool. And then all you need to do is at the head, press the button. The pump activates, the burner activates, and you get perfectly hot. I don't know if you can see the steam coming off of that, but perfectly hot water in the middle of the forest. So it comes with a little holder. And of course I've got our little setup here, but all this will be moved into the shower enclosure when that's done. And then the door between the dry area and the wet area will be enclosed by a shower curtain. So you get nice privacy, but while you're taking a shower, if you look out, this is what you'll be seeing. Trees, mountains, stars if you're taking a nighttime shower. So it will be the ultimate in comfort in the middle of the forest. And I got to tell you, I've used the shower. Been here a week and a half. I've used it maybe 3 or 4 times, and standing in a pool of soapy water that's probably 40 degrees is not fun. So I'm really looking forward to this project being completed. Here is the basis for the gray water system. Ignore the seahorses and fish. This is going to be the container. Underneath this, I'm going to bed it in a layer of sand. Calvin is incredibly interested in something, probably a chipmunk. Layer of sand that is set on some landscape fabric to keep the sand from getting absorbed into the natural sand here, because everything just migrates down. So I'll bed this down in a layer of sand. Then we'll have a layer of charcoal. Then we'll have landscape fabric over that. Another layer of sand. Probably with another layer of landscape fabric, and then small rock, and then large rock. And then on top of all of it, I have some white marble chips that will cover underneath this entire area. So the hole that you see there outlined, I'll dig down. This thing will be flush with the ground, and that will capture the water and then filter it through large gravel, small gravel, sand, charcoal, and other layer of sand before going into the earth. So that should be pretty clean, and it will definitely get all large particulate matter and most of the soap out of it, which is really all we want. It's only going to be maybe 3 or 4 people at a time in this place, and not everybody's going to be taking showers all at once. So the amount of gray water we're going to produce is really small. However, what I am going to do is I have this hose that we've been using sections of to wrap the trees so we can run cables and stuff, but that is going to be embedded in the lower corner, and I'll dig down. I'm going to trench out a little bit to just start it. I'm not digging a giant trench this time. That might be an October project, but that will go straight across and out. So if we have once the clean water migrates down, if we have too much water collection at one time after it's been cleaned, and if it can't sink down into the earth, it'll just run out the side of the hill over there, and that'll be fine. So this is today's project. Matt's packing up, so I am losing my best helper because he has been awesome. I would not have been able to accomplish everything without his help and Rhonda's help. But this is a relatively low-key one, and going to get the floorboards on, get the gray water system in, get this thing hooked up so that I don't have to stand in a dirty puddle of water while I'm taking a shower, which will be amazing. And I think my buddy Doug is going to bring me over some boards, some rough cut boards that he did from the trees in his place that have been aging outside in the backyard. And this entire thing will be wrapped in pre-aged gray 1-inch thick white pine. There'll be a door here and a half wall with a seat, and then that half wall will enclose the shower area. I'm going to drop another 4x4 in here, right here for the side of the door, but that would just get in the way while I'm digging the hole for the pit. So until I dig that, I'm not going to drop the 4x4 in. And there is plenty of structure here. Once we put the floorboards and wrap the sides on, this thing is going to be rigid and it's not going to move. So this one's not structural. It's simply to give me a framework for the door. But now, unfortunately, I got to stop talking about this and actually get to it. So after kind of a massive amount of digging through roots and rock, I have the gray water tub in place. This is just fitting. I'm going to use that downhill dirt because the land slopes generally this way and that way. So I'm going to bring that backside up to level with a rim of this, and then we'll fill all around it with clean sand after putting some landscape fabric in so the sand can't migrate down into the dirt. But you can see that this soil here is naturally like a sandy loam, so it's all decomposed leaves and sand. So if there weren't so many roots and rocks in it, it would actually be easy to dig. But you can't swing a dead cat up here without hitting a root or a rock, so, or a shovel or whatever you want to swing. But it's done now, and now it gets to the fun part of backfilling everything in and getting a platform on here and taking a hot shower to celebrate. More on this later. Okay, so here's what I've got so far. I've got the hole dug, leveled on the bottom, pool fits in fine. Lined the entire enclosure, which I'll clean this up afterwards, but I wanted to have plenty to play with. Just some cheap dollar store landscape fabric, and I doubled it over, so it's extra thick at the bottom, but still plenty of places for it's permeable, so water will flow through it, and then the pool will get bedded down just like this into this layer. So that's my first. The landscape fabric theoretically will help to hold that clean construction sand in place. That's my last filter. The pool is going to act as somewhat of a filter. It's mostly just to retain the materials that I want. It'll break down over time, but hopefully not for a long time. It's cheap plastic, so it's likely going to be in one piece forever as long as it doesn't get damaged, and this is going to all be covered, so that'll be a filter. The next thing is going to be charcoal. I have 32 pounds of charcoal, lump charcoal, and I will put a layer in here, probably to that first line that you see around the pool. That'll be all lump charcoal. Then I'll put a layer, another thing of landscape fabric over the top here, and I'll do another layer of sand, and then above the layer of sand will be a layer of small rock, and above the layer of small rock, right up the edge here, will be a layer of large rock. So large rock, small rock, sand, charcoal, another layer of sand, and then into the ground. So I think that is going to do a really good job of cleaning the water before it goes into the soil, just because I'm here in the Adirondacks and I love living here. I don't know if you can hear those bird noises, but that is most of what you hear every day. So yeah, in order to preserve this for as long as possible, I want to make sure I'm not poisoning the groundwater. So, first step. Okay, so got my layer of lump charcoal in there. Again, sand, pool, lump charcoal. Next, cover the whole thing up with a nice piece of landscape fabric, more sand. So I am not sponsored by Quikrete, but I got to tell you, this all-purpose sand that they have is pretty nice. It's coarse sand. It's going to work really well. And of course, went to Lowe's and got some small gravel and large gravel, and it's also Quikrete. So Quikrete, if you're watching and you want to sponsor me and give me some cash, I will happily accept it. But for now, I'm just using the products, and they seem to be doing a really good job. So let me get the sand layer in, and we'll move on to the rock. So the second sand filter layer is in. I dumped some of it around the outside edges to fill in, because I just want a thin layer of sand here. This is gonna be like the final filter before it gets into the charcoal. So I am going to skip ahead a bit. I'm going to do the small rock and the big rock, and then we'll take a look at it before I finally cover it all over. Okay, and there we have it. This is the finished gray water pit. Not quite finished. I've got a top layer to put on to basically spruce it up a bit and make it look fancy. But for those of you that want to do something similar, this is a medium size, roughly 3-foot diameter kiddie pool from the Family Dollar. 2 bags of the coarse washed Saccharine sand. 1 bag of the very fine pea gravel. That actually goes a long way. Some cheapo landscape fabric, and then 2 bags of these larger, I think they use them for gravel paths. These large, they're supposed to be washed rocks, but they look pretty dirty to me. But they'll quickly get washed as soon as I take a shower. So that's it, all in. I mean, maybe, I think the sand was expensive because I bought it locally here, but if I were to buy that at Lowe's, you're probably talking $5 a bag for the sand. I think it was another $5 or $6 a bag for the rock. I bought 2 bags of each of the rock, and I really only used one, so I've got a bag of pea gravel there that I can use for something else, which is nice. The landscape fabric was $6 a roll, and the pool was $10. So all in, maybe $50 tops, you know, plus the framing and stuff like that. But the pit itself, $50 roughly. So not too bad. So the eastern white pine, I think it's a white pine, is dropping its dander pollen, and so you get these chunks of fluff. I don't know if you can see that, but it's floating all through the air. Looks like it's snowing. It's very pretty. Also probably what's making my nose run. So here's the state of the project right now. The framing is essentially done. I may have to put a top brace on. I'll see what happens when the sideboards and the deck boards are down. That post is a little bit soft right now, but I'm going to put a structural screw through it, actually into it from the other side. I've got to disassemble this step here to get to it. But that should solidify that. This will be the showering platform, and there's the gray water system that I built this morning. And then the back wall will be here to here. There'll be a half wall here across from this post that will come approximately 18 to 20 inches, and then all the way up here to the top. And that'll be probably sided with the same boards that I'm going to use to side the outside of the shower. So it'll be about a 4 by 5 showering area, which is plenty of room, with a door. And I've got a shower curtain there that I can cut down, and I'll put up some 16th inch steel cable from here to here. Well, we may not have a shower curtain. I'm gonna have to figure out some kind of a solution to hook that shower curtain up without having a guillotine to cut my head off. But getting there. Matt had to leave. He has got tomorrow off, but he needs a day to rest and recover, and I do not blame him. We have been hitting it really hard. As I said, once we got here, all the work would start kicking off, and it did. But we got almost all of the projects done, including this little shower room, which I'm going to finish up myself here probably this afternoon. I had a donation of aged rough sawn, bandsaw mill sawed lumber from my buddy's place. He cut it a few years ago and stacked it in his backyard and was going to use it for a project, and has not had time to do the project and has since cut new stuff. So this is already pre-aged. It's 1 inch thick by, I don't know, 8 to 10 inches. So those are the boards that are going to go around the side of the shower. and that should give it a nice lived-in rustic look, because right now it's kind of brand new pressure treated lumbery look. But that'll finish it up nicely, and I think along the top of it I'm going to trim one of these live edge boards so that one side of it is square, and that'll be facing down, and then the other side will be facing up, and it'll kind of replicate the mountains around this area. In theory, we'll see how it works out. If not, I may have some carving work ahead of me to do some art projects. But that's what's on the plate for today. But first, water with electrolytes, because it is hot and muggy here, and a sandwich, because I haven't eaten all day. Okay guys, today's project is surrounding the shower. So the framework is up, the floor is in. I've taken a shower in it, it's rather nice. But what do you do to close it in so that your dangly bits aren't hanging out to the wind? I was lucky enough to have a friend here who supplied me with some rough sawn boards. Some of them are in rougher shape than others. This one, it looks like the ants really got to and enjoyed quite a bit. But most of them are rough sawn on a bandsaw mill, and they range in size from this one, which is probably 12 inches across and an inch or so thick, to quite a few that were a standard like 8 inches wide and 1 inch thick or 1.5 inches thick. So they start off in this kind of rough state. He sawed them and stacked them and had them set up for a project that he just didn't get around to. And so I asked him, hey, do you have any lumber that you're looking to get rid of? And what can I pay you for it? And he said, take whatever you want from that pile and give me a 6-pack of beer. So I did. So I got most of what I need. I underestimated it a little bit. I thought this board was going to be in a little better shape than it is. But I was able to get some boards. And when you clean them up, they look a bit like this. So I sawed, measured and sawed them to length. The most of the ones, once they're dried, have this nice gray patina on them. This is eastern white pine that's been sitting outside for a couple of years. It's actually really easy to work with. It cuts really nicely because it's so nice and dry. And I love this silver finish, but this is for a shower, and what I don't like is how rough this surface is. I don't want, again, those dangly bits, those aforementioned dangly bits, to come into contact with the rough surface. So it gets a sanding, which brings it down to this. On all 4 sides, the corners get eased with the sander as well, just to make sure there's no rough edges or sharp bits. And then once it's hung up, we get something like this. So most of these are sanded down to 80 grit. When I attach them to the building, what I try to do is put the cups down. When you look at a piece of wood, it's naturally got a shape to it. So where the rings are around the tree is called the cup. This one I did backwards, of course, because I'm showing you guys. But what you try to do is put those cups down, because as the wood absorbs moisture, it will naturally curl in the direction of that cup. So let's say this is a decking board and you screw it down this way with the cup up. These edges are going to lift, which is going to hold water in the center. So what you want to try and do is get it so that this cupped side, the inside of the bowl, is against the lumber that you're securing it to. Then it's still going to cup when it swells, but it cups in an outward arc, and that allows the water to shed off the outside and not sit on the wood. So I tried to do that as much as possible. Some of the sides on here on this wood was not quite as nice on the uncupped side. So it was kind of a balance between getting it properly cupped on the shower and also making sure that it's nice and good looking from the inside and doesn't have lots of sharp bits on it. So I'm very nearly out of wood. I've got a few smaller pieces here that I think I'm going to use to build the bench that will be in here. I'll run another vertical across this way and then probably lower that one or bring that one up. Makes a really nice beer shelf. But then maybe at about 18 inches or 19 inches off of the floor there, I'll have a support on this side, a support on that side, and then a small bench there to sit down and take off your close. And eventually in that corner, looking out at the wonderfulness, there will be a triangular bench that'll allow you to sit down in the shower area. So if you've got really dirty feet that you want to scrub, or you're just really tired after a long day and just want to sit and relax and take a nice hot shower, that shower head is removable. And so you can pull it down and sit on the bench at your leisure. And then these bits that we'll be sitting on will get sanded to at least 120 grit. So they'll be super smooth and super gentle on the behind. So that's the plan, and I got to get back to work. All right, guys. This is the progress so far. I am running out of daylight and steam, so I had to stop for the day. But I have most of the shower enclosure done. This is as enclosed as it's going to get, with the exception of the back wall, and we'll get to that in a minute. I've left the gap between the boards at roughly about an inch apart, and the reason is that this is untreated white pine. Even though the framework is pressure treated, this is going to get wet, it's going to absorb water, and I want air movement between the boards in order to allow that to dry out, because they're naturally going to swell and move, and that gives us plenty of room for that. All of the outsides have been sanded to 80 grit at least. All of the insides I tried to sand to 120. A lot of them, 80 grit was very, very smooth to the touch. But you can see that we've wrapped it mostly with about 4 boards. I was able to get all of this put together. And then I also was able to build the shelf that I was talking about, or the bench I was talking about, that allows you to sit down and take off your shoes. These are sanded to 120 grit. I used pressure treated lumber just because it was a nicer finish. These boards take a lot of work to get into the same shape as a pressure treated board, and it was getting towards the end of the day and I was tired. I do have a few boards left. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. I may use those as a step out here to wrap around those stumps that I trip over every single time I try to come into this building, because it's easier to put another platform there that gives you a little bit more dry area for your feet before you step onto the grass and dirt. But the back I was going to enclose in these eastern white pine boards, but I've decided that I have just enough of a 2x6 that I can stretch across the bottom here to match up to the bottom of these boards. And then I'm going to fill in between with 2x4s. And the reason I'm doing that is twofold. Number one, I don't have enough boards of the eastern white pine to actually do that. Number two, this is a weird arrangement because of the shelf and stuff. There's all sorts of weird gaps and things. It's going to make it difficult to put a wide board across here. I'd have a lot of complex cuts. And first and foremost, this is going to be the bulk of the splash area. If you're showering, that's where the splashback is going to go. And I much prefer to have pressure treated lumber back there taking the bulk of that water than this untreated stuff. So there's a whole lot of reasons to do it with pressure treated. I got a bunch of 2x4s. I over ordered by like 4 or 5 2x4s. So I've got 4 or 5, I think 12-foot pressure treated 2x4s. So I'll put a bottom board of 2x6 to match the bottom of this board over here. And then I will just infill with a 2x4 boards with whatever spacing I feel like. This is literally just to cover up the area where the battery and the propane tank and the water tank is, and to, accept the water that's going to splash off your body when you take a shower. So it doesn't have to be pretty. I'll make it symmetrical so that it all is matchy and it starts and stops, close to the top of the sideboards. But I'm excited. This is almost exactly the shower enclosure I was hoping for. I will fill in the back of this wall using more of these boards. I do have a few scraps. I don't know if you can see those over there. I have a few scraps left. Not enough to do anything significant, but certainly enough to cover this 13-inch gap here. And that'll keep this bench dry. So I'll go from the bench all the way up to the top here. And that means this will be a completely dry area. So no matter how splashy you get in here, the dry area will stay dry. But yeah, I'm pretty proud of this. This is a hot shower, fully enclosed, or will be once that wall is built, in the middle of the woods. And you get to stand here and take a hot shower and look out at nature and listen to a jet going overhead, apparently. Most of the time, though, it's bird song and chipmunks and squirrels and an occasional hoot owl. Last night it was lightning bugs. So I'm very excited to have completed nearly every project that I set out to do on this trip. It's been a lot of work, but very satisfying. So let's draw back and give you a final look here at the nearly completed shower. It should be done before the end of the week when I fly out. The shower project wound up getting completed on the last day that I was there. I wanted to leave at 1, and I wound up not getting out of there until 3:30, as the driveway wasn't completed until almost 2:30 in the afternoon. On and off rain caused breaks in project schedules for both me and the excavation team. So things didn't go as planned, but that's just the way things happen. Luckily, I was able to infill the back wall with pressure-treated lumber and build the step and block off the inside of the wall, and also build a little bonus beer shelf, because who doesn't want to have a nice ice-cold beer while you're taking a nice hot shower standing in nature? Unfortunately, in order to complete all the work that I wanted to, I had to prioritize building over recording, and so I don't have any final pictures of the shower. When I return to the property in October, I'll take video of each of these projects and go a little more into detail on the features that I like and some tweaks that I'd like to make. I think I'm going to add a door with spring-loaded hinges to the shower enclosure. That'll provide the privacy I wanted to accomplish with the shower curtain without the potential for running into a steel cable and injuring yourself. It also will be in keeping with the rustic feel of the rest of the platform, rather than being an incongruous piece of plastic. I have to say, this build was as complicated as the deck edition, but not quite as long, because it's such a small structure. But I think you can see that without too much effort, I think anybody could build one of these in the woods. The few times I was able to shower in it, it really added to the quality of life in the camp. This was a big step forward in making this piece of raw land that I purchased last year one step closer to being a forever home for me in the middle of the Adirondacks. I hope you find these videos interesting and educational, and I hope they inspire you to try taking on a project that you maybe didn't think you could accomplish. With a little advanced planning and the right tools and materials, I think these are projects that anybody can accomplish. You just have to put your mind to it and not give up.